The Chosen People is sponsored by NetWell. Healthcare costs are rising, and it can feel overwhelming. But at NetWell, we believe there's a better way. Imagine being the part of a community, a family where people just like you share medical expenses. With NetWell, you get affordable care without the burden of surprise bills or sky-high premiums. We're more than traditional healthcare sharing. We offer access to trusted providers, telemedicine, dental, and mental health services. Your well-being is our priority, and we're here for you like family. Join the NetWell family today at netwell.com. Affordable care, trusted community, your health, your way.
Previously on The Chosen People. As for Lot, he wanted to believe and could believe in a God who could make him so rich, but they seemed to have come up against an obstacle here. He just hoped Abram would be in the right frame of mind to help him solve it.
But what are we supposed to do? Our men are at each other's throats, Abram, and we can't agree on anything. It's like a bad fever dream.
We must separate. What do you think? The whole land is before us, but I will let you decide. Which way will you go?
You honor me by allowing me to take the land of my choosing, Uncle. Really, you do. Since you've offered it to me, I'll take the Jordan Plains for my family and herds. That's the direction we'll go.
So close to Sodom. Are you sure?
I think the proximity of the city would prove useful to me. Yeah, useful.
Be careful near those cities. I fear the influence of their culture is more dangerous than their spears.
Lot waved his hand casually. With a dismissive tone, he shouted back to his uncle.
My mind is a locked vault of integrity, Abram. You know this. I love you, Abram, and I always will. You've always been a bit of a brother to me. And you're everything an older brother should be. Your sense of duty and loyalty are unmatched. Farewell! Ha ha ha!
In the valley where kings clashed and nations trembled, there was one man who rose not for glory, but for love. Shalom, my friends, from here in the Holy Land of Israel. I'm Yael Eckstein with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, and welcome to The Chosen People. Each day we'll hear a dramatic story inspired by the Bible, stories filled with timeless lessons of faith, love, and the meaning of life. Through Israel's story, we'll find this truth, that we are all chosen for something great. If you've been enjoying this podcast so far, we would love it if you shared it with a friend. Let's be gift givers, offering hope and encouragement to everyone around us. And if you're interested in what we do here at the Fellowship, you can visit our website at www.ifcj.org. Now, let's begin. Today's story is one of warfare, rescue, and divine intervention. The first part of Genesis 14 brings us onto a battlefield. 4 kings against 5. Blood and dust swirl. The crash of swords and spears echo through the valleys. In the middle of this chaos, Lot, the nephew of Abram, is swept away. As it turns out, Lot's plan to settle in the lush land of the Jordan wasn't such a great plan after all. Abram, a man of faith, enters this narrative not as a warrior by nature, but as a rescuer by choice. What compels a man to risk everything for the sake of another? Is it duty, love, or perhaps the call of God? Abram is not a warrior, and he's not a young man, but love compels Abram to take up the sword. How will our patriarch fare against the kings and warriors?
Cybersecurity Awareness Month is still going strong, and LifeLock is here with a message about phishing. That's phishing with a PH. The scams cybercriminals use to trick victims into allowing access to their devices so they can steal their personal information. Being aware of potential phishing scams is one way to help protect your personal information. Because phishing scams are getting harder and harder to spot on your own, LifeLock can help. LifeLock alerts you to more uses of your personal information and fixes identity theft issues that arise, guaranteed. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second and detects and alerts you to a wide range of threats, well beyond what you can see on your own. If your identity is stolen, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it guaranteed or your money back. Plus, you're backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package with up to $3 million in coverage. Start protecting your identity today with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/iHeart. That's LifeLock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
Attention parents and grandparents. Are you searching for the perfect gift for your kids this holiday season? Give the gift of adventure that will last all year long. A Guardian bike. The easiest, safest, and quickest bikes for kids to learn on. Kids are learning to ride in just one day. No training wheels needed. What makes Guardian bikes special? They're the easiest to ride thanks to thoughtful engineering, lightweight frames, and kid-friendly components. Kids love how fun and easy they are to ride, and parents appreciate the safety features, like the patented braking system that prevents head-over handlebar accidents. Guardian bikes are the only kids' bikes designed and assembled in a USA factory, ensuring top-notch quality and durability. They're built to last and make perfect hand-me-downs. Join the hundreds of thousands of happy families by getting a Guardian bike today. Their holiday season sales have begun, offering the biggest deal of the year. Save up to 25% on bikes. No code needed. Plus, get free shipping and a free bike lock and pump with your first purchase after signing up for their newsletter. Visit GuardianBikes.com to take advantage of these deals and secure your holiday season gifts today. Happy riding!
When designing and building the world around us, every detail counts. Every stakeholder's input is crucial. That's why professionals across disciplines and projects rely on Bluebeam's easy-to-use software to communicate clearly, collaborate effectively, and speed up everyday tasks. Try Bluebeam free for 14 days, no credit card required. For a limited time, Bluebeam is offering iHeartRadio listeners 20% off a new subscription. Visit Bluebeam.com today and use promo code iHeart20 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Limit 1 transaction per customer.
What is it, Lot?
Shh, quiet.
Father, you're scaring me.
Blast it, I said shut up!
Lot's arm was frozen where he had thrust it in front of his wife and daughters, his body taut with fear. He was perfectly still, ear perked up to the sounds of the night. He had been alerted to their presence by chance. The night was unnaturally still. Animals ceased their nighttime songs, the muffled chatter from the perimeter tents had similarly disappeared, and the snapping of a twig too close for comfort all pointed to a large force moving through camp in stealth under cover of darkness. Lot's heart pounded so ferociously that he feared it might be audible to his terrified family beside him. Then, piercing through the silence, a scream. As if that initial cry was some secret signal, a twisted chorus of tortured screams broke out into the night throughout their camp and in the distance from the city beyond. It was followed by tormented sobbing and the unmistakable sounds of slaughter. As if inspired by a supernatural premonition fueled by adrenaline, Lot silently gestured for his family to follow him through the back entrance of the tent. The end of his younger daughter Milka's dress had barely cleared the opening as a fist tore back the opening of their tent, flanked by an already bloodied blade. Lot could hear the audible sound of disappointment as the intruder beheld their now empty dwelling, unaware that his prey huddled in the cramped walkway behind the tent. Again, led by a desperate primal urge to escape, he dragged his wife and daughters through their camp, keeping them out of sight. The horrors they saw would haunt his dreams for years to come. Unspeakable things were being done to the women of his camp, and countless numbers of his men lay dead, dismembered, or bleeding out on death's door. One such man noticed their quiet escape in the direction of Sodom. He was writhing on the ground, hand to his abdomen, struggling to keep his entrails inside his body, gasping for air as he poured the air in Lot's direction. Lot crept forward and knelt beside the dying man to listen to what he was trying to say.
Don't go to the city. Don't go to Sodom.
What? They sacked the city as well?
They're everywhere.
As the man choked out his last words, shouts from mere yards away forced him back to the shadows of the walkway between tents where his family was hidden. As he drew back, he noticed the man's dagger lying in the damp dirt beside him. Lot grasped it and choked back his disgust at the slick gore clinging to the weapon. At least he had some sort of defense to protect his family. Mercifully, he didn't need to use it as they went unnoticed through the camp-turned-killing field. They crouched in the darkness just outside of what was their caravan and took stock of what was before them. The intruders had torched a few of the tents on the far edge, and the flames now steadily consumed everything in their path. Thick smoke choked the air, and in the distance, twin flames were springing up, climbing the taller structures of Sodom. Men hauled looted trunks of silver, gold, and anything else they deemed of value through Lot's burning camp, callously stepping over the corpses of his fallen men. The abused women were being corralled into a line as well, surely to be taken wherever Lot's riches were headed next.
Lot, what do we do? Where do we go? Where are they taking them?
Are we going to die?
I don't know. We can't go into the city.
Then where will we go? Where is it safe? It's all gone.
They're all dead.
Enough! Quiet your whimpering and focus! We need to get as far away as we can. We can't be discovered. Where do we go? The mountains. The mountains. Are the mountains safe? Are the mountains safe?
You saw the asphalt pits when we first came here. It will be perilous to cross them in the dark.
We'll have to take that chance. We need cover. They'll find us out here on the plains when the sun rises.
Decided, Lot turned to lead his family through the Siddim Valley toward the mountains when the grinning warrior waiting in the dark stepped in front of them, blocking their path.
Looking for a way out.
Lot's wife and daughters screamed. As he turned to look behind him, he saw 5 more warriors spring forward and grab them. He whirled back to confront his would-be attacker, palming his bloody dagger, and the world suddenly went black. About 40 miles away, in a wealthy district of the city of Hebron, Abram reclined as a guest in the home of his new friend and ally, the clan leader Mamre, and his 2 brothers, Anna and Eshcol. Abram did not expect to find friends amongst the Amorites. All the other Canaanites he met during his journey had been indifferent or downright hostile, but he was surprised that he found favor with Mamre almost immediately, and they formed an unlikely alliance.
Mamre, brother, tell me, how goes our business?
Never better. And I tell you something, I've started to believe that our friend, Abram here, Abram the Hebrew, must have blown into our town on the winds of prosperity. I can't explain it, but ever since he came here and we all began working together, I've never seen such a yield. The flocks are multiplying faster than I've ever seen. The crops are springing back to life, and production everywhere has increased tenfold.
Hear, hear. Let's drink to our new friend Abram. Abram the Hebrew. You honor me. But surely the gain is beneficial for us all. I couldn't have asked for better friends, and the kindness you've shown me and my people since we came here will not be forgotten.
No, it will not.
They say the whole city is prospering. It's as if the famine never happened. The land is finally healing.
Suddenly, commotion from the receiving hall of the dwelling echoed off the stone walls of the interior. The 3 men halted their conversation to listen to the disturbance in the other room. Abram's chief servant, Eliezer, burst in not a moment later, attempting to slow a somewhat unkempt, travel-worn man from entering the room before him.
Master, pardon the intrusion, but this man insists on speaking with you. I told him you were not at home, and I couldn't reason with him to wait for you to return.
I must speak with Master Abram.
What is the meaning of this?
It's all right, Mamre. You there. What are you called?
Gira, Master, if it pleases ya.
What have you come to say, Gira?
I've traveled far to bring you this news. I fear they may be hunting me yet. It's your nephew, Lot. They've taken him.
Taken? Who's taken him?
I don't know for certain which king has him, but King Chedorlaomer led the attack. I was able to learn that later. They sacked the cities and destroyed the armies out on the plain. I was in Lot's caravan outside the city, though. We didn't think they would come for us, too. I didn't see any survivors from the camp as I escaped. I don't think anyone was left alive.
You're sure they took Lot as a prisoner? Are you sure he isn't dead?
Yes, my lord. I saw them take Lot and the girls. The other women from the camp were carted off with their livestock and riches. As for his men, well, I'm not sure any were spared. They were marching them north. No one thought 4 kings could defeat the 5. No one. They traveled the king's highways on the heels of their victories from the west.
Which cities were defeated?
All of them. The alliance of the cities of the plain are no more.
A heaviness settled over the 3 men receiving the terrible news. The cities of the plain long held the valley's southern part of the Salt Sea. They were Sodom, where Lot and his family had gone, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela. But they were also slaves to King Chedorlaomer, or had been. After 12 long years, they rebelled against his tyranny, and the rebellion had gone unchecked as King Chedorlaomer invaded and conquered the lands to the west, until now.
So, King Chedorlaomer at last came to crush the rebellion and take back what was his.
Beating the Western nations, our distant Amorite cousins included, into submission was not enough.
It would seem it was not. This is grave news indeed.
Abram, forgive me for asking this, but why take Lot and his family prisoner? Chedorlaomer is not known as a merciful man.
Perhaps they recognized that they were not Canaanites and thought to hold them to exploit a foreign government. It doesn't matter. If they're alive, then I must find them and take them back.
Abram, when you entered my house and we forged our alliance, I swore to you then that my house would defend your honor and fight in your battles. In this time of prosperity and peace, I never imagined we would be called to arms quite like this. But you have the strength of my house to aid you in this fight.
We will be with you, Abram.
Our shields and spears are yours.
Mamre, you honor me. Thank you, Eshcol. Thank you, Einer. You are good men and true friends.
We are with you, Abram, to whatever end.
Abram could hear his friend's resolute words repeating over and over in his mind as he hurried across Hebron to his caravan of tents. Abram always suspected he knew the real reason he had found favor in this city and with these powerful men, but now knowing perhaps the greater purpose behind it left Abram in awe. His God had once again provided a way to rescue his family. This time, Abram was determined to answer the call. Though the decision was already made, he knew what he had to do, for he was still repairing what he had lost with his wife. Abram's heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination as he hurried to his tent to tell Sarai what had transpired. He recounted every detail to her, watching her face turn pale at the news.
Oh, those poor people. No survivors? And Lot and his family were taken?
Yes.
And so you must go and find him and bring him back?
Yes, Sarai. I will try. I must leave at once so we don't lose their trail. I came here directly to tell you, but now I must make preparations to leave. I will raise my trained men and we will begin the pursuit. We'll be a company of 318, so we'll be able to cover ground quickly and deftly.
318 against a whole eastern army, led by a king who has conquered many nations.
The Amorites have agreed to join us as well. We won't be alone. And you know that my God will be with me.
Even though the numbers are not in your favor, even though time is not on your side, even though you're well past fighting age, Lot could be hundreds of miles away in any direction. Lot chose to settle close to the city. That was his folly. You would still be loyal to him despite all of that?
I would.
So, you'll fight for him then. you'll be courageous for him.
Yes, I don't want to fail them. I know I've been a coward before. This is my chance to...
Abram turned his face away from Sarai. He feared what would happen if he continued. Abram couldn't bring himself to fully admit what had happened in Egypt, certainly not to Sarai. Perhaps someday, but the failure still haunted him deeply. Feeling self-conscious about what he had started to confess aloud, Abram shuddered and trailed off into silence, unable to meet her gaze, fighting back the emotions welling up inside of him. He pushed down his guilt toward his wife and turned to his feelings for Lot. He couldn't lose Lot. He refused to consider the possibility and bit back the fears that had been creeping into his mind since the messenger burst into Mamre's hall. Sarai tentatively approached him and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. She tilted her head to meet his gaze, but he refused. Her voice was soft. Behind it was a well of unrequited love.
Go and save them. Don't fail, and come back home to me.
Attention parents and grandparents. Are you searching for the perfect gift for your kids this holiday season? Give the gift of adventure that will last all year long. A Guardian bike, the easiest, safest, and quickest bikes for kids to learn on. Kids are learning to ride in just one day. No training wheels needed. What sets Guardian bikes apart? Designed especially for stability, they're low to the ground with a wide wheelbase and ultra-lightweight frames, offering superior control and balance. This design gives young riders the ability to learn in just one day without tears or frustration. Guardian bikes are the only kids' bikes designed and assembled in a USA factory, ensuring top-notch quality and durability. They were also featured on Shark Tank and are the New York Times Wirecutter Top Kids Bike Pick for 2024. Join the hundreds of thousands of happy families by getting a Guardian bike today. Their holiday season sales have begun, offering the biggest deal of the year. Save up to 25% on bikes. No code needed. Plus, get free shipping and a free bike lock and pump with your first purchase after signing up for their newsletter. Visit GuardianBikes.com to take advantage of these deals and secure your holiday season gifts today. Happy riding!
When designing and building the world around us, every detail counts. Every stakeholder's input is crucial. That's why professionals across disciplines and projects rely on Bluebeam's easy-to-use software to communicate clearly, collaborate effectively, and speed up everyday tasks. Try Bluebeam free for 14 days, no credit card required. For a limited time, Bluebeam is offering iHeartRadio listeners 20% off a new subscription. Visit Bluebeam.com today and use promo code IHEART20 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Limit one transaction per customer.
The Pope is dead.
From Focus Features comes the electrifying new film, Conclave.
We're about to choose the most famous man in the world.
Based on the international best-selling thriller.
The Pope discovered something before he died.
Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci.
Ambition becomes corruption.
John Lithgow and Isabella Rossellini.
We sisters have eyes and ears.
Top critics are raving. Conclave is hands down the best picture of the year.
I had to find the truth.
Conclave, rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters this Friday.
Abram, his 318 men, and the combined forces of the Amorites set out and quickly found the trail of King Kedorlaomer and his four-king alliance. They had left a wake of destruction in their path, looting and pillaging as they went north, following the Euphrates River. Abram's tracking party, made up of his trained men, made remarkable speed as Abram had become familiar with the hill country on the western side of the valley. Abram's God had shown him all of it in his years of wandering before and after Egypt. They easily navigated the landscape and used it to their advantage in avoiding the detection of their enemy's scouts. When the larger Amorites' force finally caught up to them and made camp with them less than half a day's march from the Four Kings Alliance, Abram, emerging as the unlikely military strategist among them, laid out their plan.
Just before dusk tomorrow, your larger forces will allow yourselves to be seen in the foothills. We're far enough away that they cannot guess our true numbers. You will draw their eyes here to the west, and, in all likelihood, it will be late enough in the day for them not to be able to mount an attack until dawn. They will spend the night preparing and be distracted as I take my men to the east under darkness. There we will slip between their camp and the river. We'll spring an attack and disorient them. Though our force is small, it will feel like another great army has stormed into their midst. They will not flee west. They'll fear that they will lack the advantage of the high ground. And so they will flee either north or south, and we'll pursue them.
Hear, hear, and we will crush them whichever direction they choose.
The fainting light of dusk intermixed with the dark clouds on the horizon, painting the landscape the color of rotted wine. Mamre's army positioned themselves on the foothills. Each man carried 2 torches, making their army seem twice the size. The 4 King Alliance immediately began preparing for an attack. Abram and his men lingered in the shadows near the enemy camp. Abram grinned to himself as he and his men skirted the perimeter, hearing the commanders bark orders with terse, frayed tempers. They were likely used to have been the hunter, never the prey, and the reversal of roles had them on edge. Abram turned to Eliezer and smirked.
You'd ever expect us to be here?
With you, my lord, I've come to expect the unexpected.
That's the spirit. First company, attack!
The first cluster of men charged out of the woods into the enemy camp. None of them grew up as warriors, but they were fiercely loyal to Abram. Their war cries were deep and triumphant. They burst through the camp, slashing away at unprepared Sodomite soldiers.
Second company, charge!
Abram stationed clusters of his men at regular intervals along their eastern flank, making 300 men feel like 300,000 in the dark. More men burst through the tree with fresh legs, passing the men who had paused for combat. The sound of clanging steel and torn flesh filled the camp. Abram tightened his belt and drew his blade. He was no longer a young man. The white in his beard and creases in his eyes contrasted sharply with the tight muscles in his arm, holding up a sword. Fueled by passion, he bellowed,
Third company, follow me!
The last of Abram's men paced behind him and around him. He ran with the vigor of a man half his age. The first man he saw was a foot soldier poised with a spear. Abram swiped his sword across his body from left to right, splitting the shaft of the spear in half. He replanted his feet and swung back to the left across his body, slashing the man's neck. Blood sprayed out on Abram's face. Each phase of the camp brought a new challenger. Abram was no warrior, but a force more powerful than him fueled him. Eliezer was beside him, protecting his blind side. All the men pressed forward, slowly diminishing their forces. As Abram predicted, they panicked at the surprise attack from the opposite direction and fled north. Abram, his men, and the Amorites pursued them as far as Laish, picking off any squadrons who fell behind or broke ranks from the larger mass. When they reached the northern city of Laish beyond the mouth of the Euphrates River, they launched another attack. This time, Abram charged with more than 1,000 men by his side. His God promised him that he would make him great. Since leaving the comforts of Ur, Abram had sat in the palace of Pharaoh, dined with warlords, and led an army into battle. As Abram rushed the enemy, he couldn't help but wonder what other things this God had in store for him. The second attack was more successful than the last. Abram held a staff in one hand and a sword in another, parrying with the staff before attacking with the blade. He was no master in warfare, but it didn't seem to matter. The collective forces of Abram again pursued the last of the great army to Hobah, north of Damascus. They had traveled hundreds of miles from where they started, Abram's God sustaining them and granting them victory after victory. And it was there that Abram and his men made their last stand. With face caked in blood and sand, Abram screamed with passion, dicing the enemy one by one. Each was a barrier to his nephew. What had started as chaffed, irritated skin had turned raw and inflamed on Lot's wrists and ankles. He knew somewhere in the back of his muddled mind that the overwhelming fatigue that gnawed at him day and night was probably an infection. The wounds from his bonds had never been adequately tended to. His wife and daughters were the same. He tried not to think about tomorrow, the next day or even the next hour, and what horrors they were sure to hold. They sat in the dark prisoner's tent, trying to remain optimistic amid tragedy and suffering. Lot could tell that his captors were anxious. The pace they had adopted was grueling, and they were clearly frustrated. He had the feeling that they were being pursued. Their captors often took their frustrations out on Lot. Despite this, he feared that if these pursuers were to overtake them, they could be trading one evil for a more terrifying one. To strike fear in the hearts of King Chedorlaomer was no small feat. It was just before dawn, and the sun was only starting to warm at the tail end of the night when the shouting and fighting began. Whoever had been pursuing them finally caught up to their caravan. Lot and his family couldn't see any of it. All they could hear was the sound of clanging metal, battle cries, and tearing flesh.
What will happen to us? Will they take the camp?
We should never have left Haran, or Egypt, or Bethel, or Ai, or anywhere.
Quiet. Keep quiet. Listen.
Sure enough, the sounds of battle started to change. The rhythm of blows and suffering began to slow. Someone was winning. And from the inside of the prisoner's tent, it was impossible to tell who it was. Lot and his family exchanged leery glances with the other captives. An armored hand and forearm threw back the sheepskin hide that was their tent's opening. The warrior silently made a terse assessment of the space and called for aid. Lot's fever-laden head spun as his thoughts raced. The armor was not that of their captors. This warrior was one of their pursuers. More soldiers poured into the tent, taking in the prisoners all bound and roped together. They drew daggers as one, a diligent and practiced force. Lot braced himself for the worst and squeezed his eyes shut. But then came the sound of rope being frayed. Lot's eyes snapped open. They were being released. Moments later, the prisoners were being helped to their feet and their wounds assessed and tended to. One particularly brusque soldier hauled Lot to his feet and shouted something to the men outside ahead of him in a language Lot did not know. He pulled Lot outside the tent. Lot found himself squinting into the bright morning sun. One last warrior was locked in battle with the general of King Chedorlaomer's army. He seemed to be the last man standing. The warrior was sure-footed and moved deftly, despite being smaller and much older. He had a confident gravitas to him. This man could be a king. Abram could barely keep his legs up. Every breath was heavy, strained, and painful, but he couldn't show weakness. Not yet. He and King Chedorlaomer's general circled each other, waiting for the other to make another move. The others had surrounded them, withholding their aid. They knew this was a battle of honor. The general made another move, gliding his feet through the dirt to jab at Abram's ribs. Abram stepped to the side, but the blade grazed him. Abram winced, but quickly parried with a downward chop of his sword. The general blocked it with the thick leather armor on his arm. Abram heard the sound of cracking bone. This was his chance. Abram turned his hips back and cocked his arm. He swung his staff at the general's head. The whack made everyone watching gasp. Then, before the general could gather himself, Abram thrust the tip of his sword into the general's throat. The general fell. The crowd cheered, and the euphoria of victory rushed through him. The exhaustion of the supernatural feat finally washed over him. Abram stumbled to his knees. It wasn't over yet. He had to see if Lot was alive. He limped over to the prisoner's tent. Several of his men were helping the prisoners out of their bonds and to their feet. Knees buckling, he collapsed before a familiar face he knew almost as well as his own. The two wept at the sight of each other. Still shaking with weariness and raw emotion, he pulled Lot and his family into an embrace. All alive, all safe. Abram hadn't failed them.
Abram, you came! You came for us!
Of course I did.
I hadn't even let myself hope that you would, or that anyone would.
You are my family, Lot. I will always fight for you and come to your rescue. And through the faithfulness of my God,
You're here! You made it! You saved us! Oh, thank you, Abram! Perhaps I should thank your God as well for saving me and my family, eh?
Together, Abram and Lot set about aiding the captured women and other prisoners. They also discovered that the gold and silver Lot lost in the abduction was still there, along with riches from other kingdoms the four-king alliance had plundered. Before they broke camp to begin the long trek southward, and after they had recovered, they freed the other prisoners of war and sent them home to their countries in peace. Once everything was settled, Abram's men, the Amorites, Lot, his wife and daughters, and the women and men who had been captured, along with Lot's family, started their long trek home together.
Attention parents and grandparents. Are you searching for the perfect gift for your kids this holiday season? Give the gift of adventure that will last all year long. A Guardian bike, the easiest, safest, and quickest bikes for kids to learn on. Kids are learning to ride in just one day. No training wheels needed. What sets Guardian bikes apart? Designed especially for stability, they're low to the ground with a wide wheelbase and ultra-lightweight frames, offering superior control and balance. This design gives young riders the ability to learn in just one day without tears or frustration. Guardian bikes are the only kids' bikes designed and assembled in a USA factory, ensuring top-notch quality and durability. They were also featured on Shark Tank and are the New York Times Wirecutter Top Kids Bike Pick for 2024. Join the hundreds of thousands of happy families by getting a Guardian bike today. Their holiday season sales have begun, offering the biggest deal of the year. Save up to 25% on bikes. No code needed. Plus, get free shipping and a free bike lock and pump with your first purchase after signing up for their newsletter. Visit GuardianBikes.com to take advantage of these deals and secure your holiday season gifts today. Happy riding!
When designing and building the world around us, every detail counts. Every stakeholder's input is crucial. That's why professionals across disciplines and projects rely on Bluebeam's easy-to-use software to communicate clearly, collaborate effectively, and speed up everyday tasks. Try Bluebeam free for 14 days, no credit card required. For a limited time, Bluebeam is offering iHeartRadio listeners 20% off a new subscription. Visit Bluebeam.com today and use promo code IHEART20 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Limit one transaction per customer.
The Pope is dead.
From Focus Features comes the electrifying new film, Conclave.
We're about to choose the most famous man in the world.
Based on the international best-selling thriller.
The Pope discovered something before he died.
Rafe Fiennes, Stanley Tucci.
Ambition becomes corruption.
John Lithgow and Isabella Rossellini.
We sisters have eyes and ears.
Top critics are raving. Conclave is hands down the best picture of the year.
I had to find the truth.
Conclave, rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters this Friday.
What an incredible story. The tension, the stakes, the raw emotion. 4 kings on one side, 5 on the other. An epic clash that felt like the world was about to end. And there, in the middle of it all, was Abram. When Abram heard his nephew Lot was taken captive, something fierce lit up inside of him. He didn't hesitate. Rather, he gathered his men, 318 of them, and set out on a mission that seemed impossible, even suicidal. Each step of the journey was fraught with danger. Abram was outnumbered, but he pressed on. Against all odds, Abram split his forces and attacked at night. And his men rescued Lot and returned all the stolen possessions and captives. The relief was palpable. Victory, which had seemed impossible, had actually been won. But you see, it wasn't just about the physical battle. No, it was about faith. It was about trust in God and the willingness to risk everything in order to save the life of another. In this story, inspired by just 16 verses in Genesis, we get a glimpse into the heart of Abram, a man chosen by God. In Imperfect Man, Abram was a man capable of cowardice. We saw that in our last episode. He had fear in his heart. But Abram was also driven, maybe you can say even more so, his strongest conviction by love, faith, and a sense of justice. This is what true courage looks like, what it means to stand up for those who you love, and what it means to trust in God even in the face of insurmountable odds. First, let's take a look at the relationship between Abram and his nephew Lot. As Abram's story was about to begin a couple of chapters ago, Genesis 11 gives us the genealogy of Abraham's family. And it only tells us that Abram has two brothers, Nahor and Haran. But here in Genesis 14, after we've already read that Lot is Abram's nephew in the original Hebrew, verse 14 tells us that Abram heard that his brother had been taken captive. Now, we've already seen that Abram's world and Lot's world were very different, spiritually and otherwise. But in Judaism, there's no greater or more valuable act than saving a life. So when Hebrew calls Lot Abraham's brother, it's telling us that no matter Lot's faith, no matter his location, no matter his actual relationship to Abram, the rescue of this hostage, the saving of this life was all important. You see, Jewish tradition teaches that when Abram heard of Lot's predicament, it took him no more than a second to put aside his differences with Lot, his brother, and to rush and save him. He suddenly transformed from someone he had issues with to feeling like a brother that he had to save. And as Jewish tradition tells us, whoever saves one life saves an entire world. This supreme value of saving and preserving life is still paramount today for God's people, especially here in Israel, where we face threats on all sides. And most recently, we've seen in the wake of the terror attacks on the Holy Land and the war with Hamas that we have to be together. And this value of saving lives is something that the fellowship works to fulfill around the clock. We do it every day, every second. We provide life-saving care for those in need among God's people here in the Holy Land and all around the world. We feed the hungry, we clothe the naked, we save lives, those who are similar to us and those who are different. But we feel like they're our brother. Now, let's explore this story's greater implications for the ongoing story of God's chosen people. Abram's rescue mission wasn't just an isolated event. It's deeply connected to God's covenant with Abram, and it's also a reflection of God's unwavering commitment to all of his chosen people. Remember, in Genesis 12, God made a promise to Abram, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Let me explain this. It wasn't a one-time deal. This was a covenant, a binding agreement that set the stage for everything that followed. And Abram's rescue of Lot is a microcosm of both of these larger covenants. God's promise to Abram extended protection and blessing, not just to Abram himself, but to his family as well. This divine protection is evident in Abram's unexpected victory over the kings. Abram's wasn't victorious simply because of his strategic prowess or his men's bravery. No. Abram won because God fulfilled his promise. Just as Abram intervened to save Lot, God promises to intervene to save his people. And throughout history, today, and I believe in the days to come, we see that promise of God to intervene to save his people. Because God's covenant isn't static. It's not just something from ancient times. No, God's covenant is dynamic. It's alive. It's unfolding through real events and real people. It is God stepping into our reality, into our lives, into our struggles, and offering us salvation. So when we look at Abram's rescue mission, we see a reflection of God's greater plan, a plan of protection, blessing, and salvation, a plan rooted in his covenant. This story reminds us that God's promises are sure, His protection is real, and His commitment to saving is unwavering. And it's a testament to God's ability to deliver His people from even the most daunting adversaries. Here's Bishop Paul Lanier, our dear friend, who is going to explain a little bit more from the Christian perspective on Abram and God's promise of deliverance.
Thank you so much, Yael. I know we're pressing into chapter 14 of Genesis, but I got to tell you, there's something about chapter 13 that just won't let me go. Can I take just a moment here? I'm so moved by the profound faith of Abraham in God. Abraham has been so blessed, and the anointing of God is so profoundly upon his life that it's on his nephew's life as well. And the blessing is so great and the land is so small, there's not enough room for both of them. And Abraham's realizing something, and so he says to his nephew, "Son, I want you to take a good look." Hear that? I like that phrase. It's going to come back to us in a moment. I want you to take a good look around us. I want you to find the land, the region where you want to live. You carry your herds and your flocks and your wealth and prosperity to that place, and I'll just take whatever's left. Hear me? Abraham's learning a powerful lesson, isn't he? I don't really enter a blessed place, whether it's here or there. I carry the word of blessing with me wherever I go. Oh, that's a word for you right now. And the Bible says that Lot did. He looked around and he saw Sodom, and he said to himself, "Oh, it's so lush and beautiful and fragrant, and the colors and the textures and the aroma and all of it. I want that space." And obviously the spirit of honor is not at work in Lot's wife. He should have said, "Abraham, you've been so good to me, sir, and whatever you choose, I'll take what's left." Listen to me. God will never honor a dishonoring person or people. And once Lot was gone, the Bible says God took Abraham outside, and it's his turn. This time God says to Abraham, "Now I want you to look. I want you to look north, south, east, and west. But not just what you can immediately see, because I need you to understand something, Abraham. My blessing on your life isn't determined by your vision, but mine. I want you to look as far north as you can, but it's beyond those mountains. Now, I want you to look as far as you can south, but it's deeper than the Negev. Go ahead. Look as far east as you can, but it's farther than Eden. Yeah, at west is something, isn't it? But it far extends the waters of the sea. Well, I feel like I'm talking to somebody right now, and maybe you've felt betrayed, lied to or lied on. Somebody stole something from you. It belonged to you. They tried to undermine you. They've absolutely no sense of honor in their relationship to you. And God's assigned me in your life right now to tell you that He knows exactly where you are. He knows what happened, and the words of accusation and the minimizing of your blessing. He's fully aware of every bit of it. But don't you give up on the promises of God. Don't you allow the enemy to cause you to feel abandoned by heaven. You surely are not. Well, I can't wait to get back now and to really get into chapter 14.
You might be facing a difficult situation right now, something that feels overwhelming or impossible. But remember, God's promises are true. His protection is steadfast. He sees you, He loves you, and He is with you. It's something that I remind myself living every day here under threat in the Holy Land. That just as Abram stepped up with courage and faith during Lot's time of need, we too can be a vessel of God's deliverance and hope to others. God can use us every single day through our actions, through our words, through our presence to bring His light into the lives of others. Think about the people around you, your family, your friends, your community. Who needs a touch of God's hope today? God can use you to provide that hope, to be that light in the darkness, to change a life and to even save a life, to be reminded of that covenant. Abram's story reminds us that no situation is beyond God's reach. His promises to Abram were not just for Bible times, they are for every time. They are as relevant today as they were then. So as you go through your day, be open to know how God might use you. Be ready to step into situations with faith, knowing that God is at work. God's promise of hope and rescue is indeed for each one of us. And each of us plays a critical role in spreading that hope and love to others. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn His face towards you and give you peace. Shalom, my friends, from here in the Holy Land.
You can listen to The Chosen People with Yael Eckstein ad-free by downloading and subscribing to the pray.com app today. This pray.com production is only made possible by our dedicated team of creative talents. Steve Katina, Max Bard, Zach Schellebarger, and Ben Gammon are the executive producers of The Chosen People with Yael Eckstein, edited by Alberto Avila, narrated by Paul Coltofianu. Characters are voiced by Jonathan Cotton, Aaron Salvato, Sarah Seltz, Mike Reagan, Stephen Ringwald, Sylvia Zaradoc, and the opening prayer is voiced by John Moore. Music by Andrew Morgan Smith. Written by Bree Roseley and Aaron Salvato. Special thanks to Bishop Paul Lanier, Caleb Burrows, Jocelyn Fuller, and the team at International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. You can hear more Pray.com productions on the Pray.com app, available on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. If you enjoyed The Chosen People with Yael Eckstein, please rate and leave a review.
When designing and building the world around us, every detail counts. Every stakeholder's input is crucial. That's why professionals across disciplines and projects rely on Bluebeam's easy-to-use software to communicate clearly, collaborate effectively, and speed up everyday tasks. Try Bluebeam free for 14 days, no credit card required. For a limited time, Bluebeam is offering iHeartRadio listeners 20% off a new subscription. Visit Bluebeam.com today and use promo code IHEART20 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Limit one transaction per customer.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now, imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and they're all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.